All right, we are recording. We're live. So this is Matthew Sims speaking with the ever-inspiring artist Lita Albuquerque in her studio in Santa Monica, I think.
Yes, yes.
Today is, what is today? August
13.
12th, 2012, I think. My
Yes.
computer said 12, 2020. And this is for the Archives of American Art, Smithsonian Institution. We're calling this the Pandemic Project, although if you have a better name for it, let me know. But we're doing all
Okay.
these little 20-minute oral histories where we check in with our friends, which is what I wanted to do with you. So I'll
Okay.
just start by asking you, how have you been? How are you
Well,
weathering the pandemic?
yeah. Well, when you say, if you have any idea of calling it something else, I kind of think of this year as the fulcrum year.
Fulcrum.
I had all kinds of anticipations, as we all did, about 2020. But for me, and I don't mean to sound Pollyannish, but I really feel that this is a transformational year, and that the way we're getting there is not the way we would have expected, but in fact, it's truly as if, well, one of the ways I like to think about it is the idea. I'm really interested in this cultural historian. His name is Thomas Berry, and he talks about how, oh, he's really wonderful. He talks about, he wrote a book in 1999 called The Great Work. He's no longer with us, but he was saying how we're at the end of the old story that started 2,000 years ago, and that we need to create a new story. And that new story is of us in the cosmos, which made my heart sing, since that's really what my work has really been about, that kind of perspective. And then he talks about, there's 3 universal laws. The first one is of multiplicity and diversity, the fact that everything in the universe is unique. The second one, which really has taken my attention, is that everything has an interiority and a subjectivity that expresses itself, that is continually expressing itself. And the third one is, through that subjectivity and through that diversity, we're all interconnected. So I have experienced this period as light itself expressing itself in a way, in a much greater way than, I mean, I physically, I feel that. I mean, I've always taken the pulse of that kind of energetic things going on, but it seems as if light has come in and is expressing itself through, obviously shining on darkness, all of this. So it's very, it's quite an upheaval. And also, what's the reason I call it a fulcrum year into transformation, is we've all had to go inward. There's, as we all talked about, there's never been a time on planet Earth where every single person on the planet is doing the same thing, meaning they're all at home, right? And are able to observe what we've done to nature. Personally, what happened to me on March 15th, we moved out of the barn, where that was, the A. Quincy Jones building, and into this wonderful, wonderful place, only about 1.5 miles from our burnt out property. It's like there was a waterfall, a small waterfall, and a creek, and bunnies and coyotes and crows. And I have a little studio there. I'm not there today, but I have a little studio, maybe 7 feet wide by 20 feet, with a window to the creek and a desk right there. And I can observe all these things. And in the beginning, for me well, it was 2 things. It was also moving from a very transitional place for us. It was right after the fire, 15 months of that. But also in the city, to this this wonderful, very nature, into nature. And so I was able to just really observe nature and and all of us felt this, how it came alive, you know, like our retreating, all of a sudden nature comes back very quickly. And I think that's a very important point. Whether or not it's going to stay that way is something obviously to be seen. But I think one of the things that's happened is it's really been a very interior time since the lockdown. We've all had to adjust, you know, being home with husbands, wives, children, you know, all of that. But obviously, as an artist, it isn't that different, in that that is what we do. Um, but in my case, I wasn't here in the studio in Santa Monica. Um, so I was able to kind of settle in. I really had time to dream, really had time to write. Um, One of my morning rituals is to go, I do these energetic meditations on the beach while I'm running. That kind of came to me about 25 years ago. And then I go swimming in the ocean every day. When they locked down the beaches, I was, you know, in really bad trouble. But I was able to go back to do that. That really is very nourishing. And then all my assistants were pretty much on working. They still work, but in their different studios as opposed to the main studio. I also moved another studio downtown, which I've only been to now. That place I really had to come back to. Here I came back, about a month ago, I think, something like that, but still not as much. I'm mainly in Malibu in the small studio. And there, of course, as you did project, which was an amazing project, that was in January, and it was in the desert there.
This is
Can you hear me?
in Saudi Arabia?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, and also on March 10th, we had, I was asked to do a project for the Huntington Gardens for their centennial. And we had installed this boulder, but we hadn't finished doing it. So it was stopped. But then at the end of June, we were able to complete it. So it's one of the few works that can be seen physically. It's called Red Earth. And it's it's in the middle of this bamboo grove. And it's a boulder with red pigment just kind of on it. And then on the bamboo, there's copper rings that kind of shimmer with the sun. It's very musical, and it's kind of great.
Is this
Yes.
located because there are a couple different places with bamboo over there. One is up by the Japanese garden and one is
Yes.
down,
Yes.
where is your?
It's the Japanese garden.
Okay.
Yeah, in the bamboo grove of the Japanese garden. So it's kind of wonderful to be able to complete that project. And I've also done some writing. I did a piece called Beauty, Transcendence, and the Sublime. It was for, you probably know, it's for Compound, which is a new cultural center in Long Beach. And they have a publication called Compounded. And I did a piece about what it's like to be during the pandemic. And I spoke about nature coming back and those kinds of ideas.
And you hear these stories about, already at the beginning, you heard about dolphins coming back into the Bay of Naples or someplace. I mean, all these things. I saw dolphins here in Long Beach coming up into this marine stadium area, which you never see.
Wow.
So there is this kind of nature tentatively trying to figure out, wait a minute, can we spread over into these areas now? Is it safe? You know, so it's interesting to wonder how things will, what the future holds.
Yes, yes. It certainly is a time that makes you think about our effect on the environment. And you see it very rapidly. And I think that's one of the fact that we can be quiet, we can be in one place. I mean, I feel very fortunate that I'm in this nature place to begin with, but to be able to see what we do to the environment, and then what do we do about it, like what.
And you have been interested in, I don't want to say, I mean, the environment is a catch-all in a way, but you've been interested in environmental systems, relationships from macro to micro, pieces behind you. Seeing pieces from uh, temporary, site-specific performances that you've done. Um, so I can understand how all of this would resonate in a very personal and aesthetic way for you in terms of your practice.
Yes.
Has it pushed you in new directions? Are there new thoughts of, hey, here's something I really want to respond to? I mean, I don't know if it's had a, in addition to thinking and in addition to having that moment, have you thought of ways that, oh, this is something I want to do to respond to that in my practice as an artist?
It's burgeoning.
Mm,
It's more in the thinking kind of, you know, kind of in the cauldron, kind
right,
of,
right.
but not specifically. I'm going to do a piece that's going to be that.
Yes.
But it's hard for it to. It's hard not to think about it, whether or not it's going to come out in the work. Specifically, I am not sure. I'd love to address it, but I just don't know yet. I have thought in terms of opera, you know, the idea of really performative, narrative, operatic. One of the things I've been doing is editing this film that I think I showed you
I don't know
called
that
Liquid
quite.
Light.
I remember
Oh,
hearing
okay. Yes, yes. And it's part of it's a series of films I'm making. And the next piece I want to do is going to be in Africa. So I'm just beginning to develop what that's going to be.
it. Hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it encompasses it on some level.
Yes.
Um, yeah.
Well, I was interested to hear you mention the work that you had done for Desert X in Saudi Arabia. I know that you had also done a piece for Desert X in the
Yes.
Coachella Valley that had to
Yes.
do with sound and listening. Has
Yes.
sound always been something that you were interested in? Is it, I mean, you were talking about opera and that I'm just interested in that because you work on many levels. Your work is so complexly and finely integrated, and that I was just wondering about the question of sound.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my first loves was dance and then theater. And but I went into the visual arts, and and then I wrote, I started really writing, and I had this text for quite a while and didn't quite know what to do with it. I thought it was going to be a book. And then I started incorporating that into my work. So that's coming in more and more. And the idea of sound is something that I mean, we're all so inspired by music, by that. And yes, it's something, I mean, I admire people like Robert Wilson, Phil Glass. I'm a great, quite a fan of, I love that kind of work. And what I'm interested in is for the work to inspire. You know, I'm really interested in inspiring other people. I mean, I, one of the things that happened during the lockdown. I was driving down a very um, uh, windy canyon down to the ocean, and I realized I realized what my mission in life was, and that my mission in life is to be happy, and then to share that happiness, right? And it was like so simple and yet so real, and it's that thing of what do you do every day that gives you joy. And I mean, it sounds, but it's so, I mean, obviously there's obstacles and there's the darkness and there's what's going on socially and politically that's very much a part. But it's to be inspired and to inspire. And I think that's so, I think we all have that as artists, and we all have that as human beings. So yes, it's something I'm definitely, the piece at Sunnylands at Desert X in 2017 was I was so thrilled because it was the combination of writing the libretto, singing. The Los Angeles Master Chorale was singing. There was music that someone I collaborated with did the music. There was the choreography. There was dance. There was then the sculpture. Then there was the performance. But then there was the sight, and the sight, and every single one of those things had were equal, which was really fascinating to me. It was like a living painting, but it was like the music, dance, performance, color, costuming, all that had equal, had equal say, kind of. And
Yeah.
I love that. I have to admit, one of my inspirational things is to watch dancers rehearse. I'm kind of like, I think of Degas, in all his drawings of doing that. And yeah, so when you go to those places, then they engender
Yeah.
other things.
And the idea that at the center of this was this body, female body that had its ear to the ground. At first, we weren't quite sure what the posture was, and then it was, oh, listening. And then, interestingly enough, for the next piece you did with Desert X in Saudi Arabia was another female form in this. I mean, you have to maybe say one or two things about this blue that you love that we
Yes.
see behind you here.
Yes.
That these figures were in that same color as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a number of things. The blue really comes out of, I grew up in North Africa and Tunisia, and there's a town called Sidi Bou Said, and
Mm.
it's very much like Greece, but in the 19th century, actually, it was a Frenchman who came and introduced that color, and it's on a hill, and it's super famous. I want to have a house there, but it's like exorbitant, over Paris and New York. And so it's white washed, and then blue. There's blue. All the windows are blues. The doors are blue. This kind of thing.
Mm.
And so that was one of the things. And one in the 70s, I think I was back at our house in Tunisia, and the nighttime sky was not black. It was this deep blue.
Mm.
And so that was one thing. But the big influence came from a friend of mine. Her name is Susan Kaiser Vogel. She was a light and space artist, and for her MFA show, she had done a piece called Blue Flame, which was essentially a 10 feet by 10 feet by 10 feet brick room. And this is pre-Terrell. It was just four walls. It was outdoors. And she had very lightly drawn light blue, not this blue, but light blue pastel. So when you went inside the room, you looked up and you saw the sky. The blue of her pastel totally melted into the sky.
Mm.
And I thought, oh my God. And we're best friends, we're like, and I said, this is it. And I started doing projects that were uniting the earth and the sky. So that had a lot to, that was a big.
And this pigment you've used also as material that you've spread out on the earth.
Yes, yes,
Very early on, you did a kind of uh, a little furrow
yes,
with blue pigment in it in Malibu. I know.
yes.
But the figures now being cast in this, are they in polyester resin? I'm not sure. The figures.
Yeah, well, the last one was aluminum, actually.
Oh, okay.
The very first one was plaster.
Okay.
The second one, which I did in Switzerland, that was resin.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to be doing another one. But let me tell you a little bit about what the figure is. So the text that I'd written, it was back in 2003, was about a 25th century female astronaut who comes to this planet to teach us about the stars and our relationship to the cosmos. The first piece that I did, it was a film that I called 2020 Accelerando, so accelerating towards 2020. And
Uh,
as she comes to Earth, she crashes and forgets her mission. And so that was all about her remembering. It's really a symbol for us as humans,
yeah.
where do we come from, that kind of thing. And then I'm now taking her to different places, like at Desert X, she was listening to the Earth. She was but she was also telling us to listen. For me, the piece at Desert X, the first one, was a very political piece. It was one of my first political pieces. It was right after the election in 2016. It was in 2017. And what I'm very much someone who does projects in the desert, and here was Desert X, right? And instead, I chose Sunnylands, and the reason I chose Sunnylands is because I had heard what they did in terms of having heads of state come there to have to discuss world politics, and I thought, wouldn't it be great in this site of political power to infuse cosmic power? So that's what I was doing. So with it was called to action in a way. It was called to listen. It was also about silence. And so the figure, the blue figure, oh, the blue also comes from another thing where uh, way back when I would close my eyes and I would see entire planets covered in ultramarine granular pigment. And so I feel that something in our DNA, some kind of memory, the blue line that you're talking about is almost like a burial. I continually have those kinds of images. I did these boxes, glass boxes, just filled with the blue pigment. I wrote the word remembrance on it. So it's really at looking at the planet from a very future place. I think of the year 7066. That's come into my writing. She comes from the 25th century. So and so it's really wonderful to hear Thomas Berry talk about that. What we need to do now is the next story, which is us and the cosmos. And I'm seeing it everywhere. A lot of artists, musicians, we're coming in, or not even artists, we're coming into that, right? We're coming into understanding more and more. I was obsessed for years about the stars and our relationship to the stars. And that's why I did all these pieces with alignments. And I couldn't understand why I had that. It had to do with I like to think of myself as a navigator, kind of navigating the planet, that kind of. And
down the road in Malibu.
yeah, down God knows where, right? Where are we going? I better know where we're going. so it's a lot of imagination. It's a lot of it comes through writing. It comes through just images that come up, and it's all very interconnected too.
Yeah. Well, we're running down on time,
Okay.
although I would love
Okay.
to keep talking. What kind of, I mean, you've said so much, and I, in a way, thought that of many of the people I spoke to, you would have this sense of a larger interconnection because it's so much part of who you are and what your work is about, that kind of vastness that I told you when I first met you, that you have this vastness vision that I admire. Um, so one thing I did want to just ask you in closing is that peace in Saudi Arabia was itself also a really radical gesture in the sense that it was a representation of a woman in the desert. Was that something that was meaningful to you? That,
Oh,
you
it
know,
was, yes. I mean, I had wanted to continue my trajectory of the 25th century female astronaut, but to have that accepted in Saudi Arabia, where they had never had a representational figure, certainly not a woman, was extraordinary. And I heard that there hadn't been one since Muhammad, so talk about the revolutionary female archetype, to be able to do that in January of the year 2020, which I totally believe is a fulcrum year into this new story.
yeah.
And is a fulcrum year into transformation.
Mm.
And through craziness, right? Through horrendous things that are going on in the world. But it really feels like that. So to be able to have that, people told me I was crazy to do it. I was going against a lot of what I was, I was told not to do it, and I just had to do it. It also, my own history just made a lot of sense that I would do that. But the fact that it was such a revolutionary move for a woman, or an American women artist, to do a piece that had never been done since the year 700 in Saudi Arabia, in a place that had been so restrictive. They're totally opening their doors now. And the women I met there were just phenomenal, phenomenal.
Well, I'm
So
sure that I mean that piece is inspiring in so many ways, and has had, uh, I'm aware of a little bit of the press that came out of the time that was urging people not to participate, but in the end, by participating, you had this incredibly positive, like you said, revolutionary impact that is not, let's say, I mean, it's obvious in one way, but it's very subtle in another. So,
yeah,
so I think it participates in this larger, vaster vision that I associate with you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks
Well,
for saying that.
there you go. So I sort of summed things up for you, but I did want to give you a chance to say anything else, if you had anything else that you wanted to say about 2020 and.
Yeah. Well, the main thing I want to say is for people not to despair, because it is, and to take the opportunity to go inward and to revolutionize themselves, you know.
Mhm.
And I think what's happening in the social, political, well, I won't go into politics, but in the social is incredibly positive. And the having everyone able to express themselves. I mean, it's that whole thing going back to everything in the universe, whether it's a human being, an animal, or a rock, a planet, a galaxy, light, air, has a need to not a need to expresses, right? And so we need to allow for that to happen. And I think we're doing that. I think we're in process. I mean, it's a lot of work and it's been going on for a long time. And I think this is the beginning of something extraordinary. And I do want to conclude with this. I've spent the last 5 days packing up the fire archive, the objects that my friend Amy Sue had put together at Lauren Vaughn's place, of the remains of what you had seen. And it was an extraordinary experience. Yesterday was the last day, and I feel I'm at a whole new, like the beginning, the ending, and the beginning of a new, completely new phase. And it's like one has to be in the moment now. We have to be now, can't be burdened with any notions of the past, and yet understanding history and understanding the past, but to really be in the moment in order to be able to survive, but also in order to be able to inspire. So
Yeah,
that's
and to take advantage of this moment
and
of.
to take advantage of this moment.
You've used the word revolution several times, a turning, a kind of a movement around, starting, but also up and out, perhaps, like you said, into
Yes.
a new moment. So
Yeah.
wonderful to talk to you. I'm gonna say goodbye and
Okay.
stop the recording. Let's see, I stop it. Where do I stop it? Here. Stop recording.